What if you had the ability to perceive a person, place, or thing in real time, from right where you are right now? That's called remote viewing, and you don't need to go to the Monroe Institute to have that experience. Today, I wanted to share my experience with remote viewing and how I learned on my own, as well as my experience with the Gateway tapes and some of my craziest remote viewing stories. So let's get into it. First off, I wanted to start off by saying I was a GATE child. I attended the Gifted and Talented program in elementary school. And if you've heard about GATE, you've probably heard about the Gateway tapes through that and heard that they were playing us the Gateway tapes when we were having those hearing tests. There's also an interesting technology used in the Gateway tapes. If you look at the US patent, they have the ability to sync our brainwaves. So basically what they do is copy the EEG brainwaves and turn it into a frequency that they can play for others to facilitate learning. So my question is, was I already primed for remote viewing? I don't know. But it's something that I hadn't done for a really long time until I was in my late 20s and I started having some psychic experiences. I personally have the belief that everyone is psychic and we all have different psychic senses. And I believe that our psychic muscles are something that have to be trained. And society at large doesn't really want us to tap into these abilities, because if everyone was able to tap into their ability to remote view and to perceive beyond the veil, society would be really hard to control. So that is why I believe we are not taught these things naturally, and why I myself had to learn how to do it on my own. So in my late 20s, I was drinking a lot and I had a lot of really unhealthy habits, like eating junk food, going to happy hour with my friends, smoking cigarettes, and I had really bad anxiety, mostly because I was working a soul-sucking job that was not in alignment with anything that I really wanted to do. I was also listening to low vibe music, and I had a lot of low vibe habits that I didn't even know were dampening my psychic abilities. But at around the age of 27, I decided to get sober kind of by accident, because I saw a friend that was sober and I was like, man, I'm really depressed right now. And the only thing I haven't tried is sobriety. So I guess I'll just start doing what you're doing. So I started following him to meetings, and eventually I was able to quit alcohol. And once I quit alcohol, I had a lot more money in my wallet and I had a lot more time on my hands. So once I was sober, I was ready to start diving into the metaphysical. I started with meditation and positive affirmations, and eventually started seeing angel numbers, which I would Google because I'm like, what is this? Why am I always seeing 111 or 222 or 123? And I realized, oh, they always seem to come to me when I'm thinking of something that I'm trying to create. And then I'd always see 111, which is an angel number that is trying to tell you, hey, your thoughts are about to become things, so you better be careful with what you're thinking about. So I got really into angel numbers. Eventually, I started to read tarot. I was told that you're not supposed to read tarot on your own, that the way you know if you're supposed to be a reader is if somebody gifts you a tarot deck. So somebody ended up gifting me a tarot deck after I put out the intention to the universe that I would like to learn cards. And after, more importantly, I released the outcome, because I was like, well, if I'm meant to do this, then show me a sign. And the universe did. It gifted me with a deck of tarot cards, not only a deck, but also a deck that had a book that explained the different archetypes and gave you different exercises to practice with yourself. And I had practiced with those cards a handful of months until it finally hit me one day. I was asking the same question over and over again, and in a deck of 72 cards that I kept shuffling, I pulled out the same 5 cards. It was at that moment that I realized, wow, my thoughts really are creating the outcome of the cards, or the cards are reading my energy, because I was in the vibration of the question. So I wasn't in the headspace to get a clear answer, hence why the same 5 cards kept coming out. So once I realized my power as a creator, I wanted to start practicing with my friends. So I started doing tarot readings for free at different festivals and trunk shows, where I would bring my crystal jewelry and sell my crystal jewelry and do tarot readings for people that were passing by. And From that experience, I learned how to not only start reading the symbols of the cards, but to start trusting my intuition. And I didn't even know it, but I was practicing my ability to perceive remotely what was going on inside somebody's head. Maybe not remotely because they, in that case, were right next to me, but I was tapping into my ability to perceive what they were thinking or what they were feeling. I was able to get feedback in real time from the people I read for. So not long after that, or maybe it was before that, I stumbled upon an ESP book, and it taught me about our chakra system, Kundalini energy, and how when the Kundalini energy is rising, it can get stuck in our field when we have trauma. So it was very important for me to work through my trauma and get in the habit of consistently meditating. And I found that when I did, my intuition came through a lot more clearly. The book also gave me some exercises to try. It was basically saying that when you set the intention to perceive something, it's really important to be able to tap into the insights you get. So for example, if I was sitting with somebody right next to me and I said, hey, I want you to think of a color or think of an animal. Basically, in this book, they would recommend that you sit with somebody and practice these exercises in real time and try to perceive what they are thinking of. So I didn't have anybody to practice with in real time, but I did have my tarot clients. So in a way, the same ESP exercise in the book was kind of being used in my tarot sessions. So I was able to get feedback from them. My ability to remote view didn't take off until I had a remote Reiki session. One of my clients had just gotten a Reiki session from a woman who lived in New York while I was living in Ohio. And she said she did her sessions remotely. And I was like, what? How does that even work? And I was skeptical. But I went to this lady and got a Reiki healing session done where I meditated for the same hour where she was tapping into my energy field. And holy crap, I became a believer so quickly because she was able to draw a picture of my bedroom and show me a spot on my wall that had something blue and that I needed to situate myself correctly. And when I looked at that spot on my wall, I saw a person meditating, and that person had a blue aura. And the weird thing about it was that my room had a really odd shape. So it would have been impossible for her to know what my room looked like, as I had never posted a picture anywhere. I wasn't walking around with my camera like, hey, so there's really no way that she would have had to know that my room looked like that. So immediately after I got that session, I started putting 2 to 2 together, and I said, well, I also do readings for clients, but what if I tried to do them remotely? And eventually, what if I tried to do them without the use of tarot cards? So long story short, I started doing remote tarot sessions with my clients without even knowing that I was remote viewing. I just didn't know the correct term for it. So I've been able to pick up on a lot of really cool things during my remote viewing sessions with clients. Our intuition can speak to us in many different ways. For example, sometimes I pick up on what people are doing in real time. Sometimes I just have gut feelings or thoughts or see colors that I have to interpret on my own. But either way, every time I have a session with somebody, it always leads the client to where they're supposed to be led. So I'm going to give you a few examples. One time I was reading for a girl and I saw orange and I saw birds. And I told her, and she's like, whoa. And then she shows me a picture of a coloring book, and it's a picture of a bird on a branch with an orange dangling, and she had only colored in the orange. So I was picking up on what she was doing in real time. That's why I saw orange and birds. Another client I was reading for, I was laying down to do her session and I heard the name Elizabeth. And I said, does Elizabeth mean anything to you? And she said, oh, I'm at an appointment right now with somebody named Elizabeth. So again, I was picking up on what she was doing in real time. In another session, I saw snakes, which to me represent the goddess Lilith. And then I started seeing really creepy images like Hellraiser, witches' hands, demons holding onto a baby, and religious programming. To me, all of those things represented Pluto, the underworld. So I knew that I was supposed to look at my client's astrology chart. And when I did look at his chart, I saw that the lunar eclipse was at the exact same degree point as his natal sun and natal moon, which means that this lunar eclipse for him was supercharged It's like 10 times the energy you might experience during a regular lunar eclipse when it hits your personal points. So those are all examples of how remote viewing can be used in a session with my clients and how it can help us lead ourselves to clarity. I've also had some really interesting experiences with the Gateway tapes because I did start listening to them back in May, a couple of months ago, when I rediscovered that I was in the GATE program. It's something that I had not thought about for about 30 years. I'd filed it in the back of my mind until I started seeing videos on the internet about it. And I heard somebody play the Gateway tapes in a video, and it gave me shivers down my spine. I remembered his voice and I remembered hearing the tapes. So I started to listen to them. And I wanted to see if any of my memories would come back to me by listening to the tapes. Now, granted, I did not use the tapes in the way that they are designed to be used because he goes through your very basic beginning exercises of meditation, getting used to having your body be asleep while your mind is still awake. He teaches you how to protect yourself with the balls of energy and to put your problems away in the box. So I found those sessions a little boring since this is stuff that I'd already been doing on my own for almost a decade by now. But I did skip around to a few different Gateway experiences, and one of them was the remote viewing one, and I also did the 5 messages from my spirit guides. But I had a very interesting experience during the remote viewing one. When I listen to the Gateway tapes, I find that I go into a very deep meditation where my mind goes completely blank for 5-10 minutes at a time until I'm jostled awake with his voice, or in this case, an image. So my mind during that session was very clear. I was very relaxed. And then out of nowhere, I started seeing a satellite image that was zooming in on a wooded area with a lot of green trees. And then I was taken in my mind to a cloning facility. I saw babies in gigantic test tubes like I had seen in other movies where they have clones in test tubes. And it really creeped me out. And then right after I saw that, I saw 2 doctors in a lab coat. They were on the floor in a lab that was very disheveled. And I heard they got away with it in Sector 7. And then I saw the 2 doctors on the floor. One of them was standing behind the other doctor and stabbed them in the temple with a medical tool. So that was a creepy experience. And in that case, I have no way of knowing whether or not that was an actual experience I was seeing in real time, or if that was a symbolic message or something I had maybe picked up from a movie. But I will tell you that my success rate with remote viewing this far is pretty good. And I've also seen plenty of videos online where people have remote viewed a cloning facility. And I believe Bob Lazar talks about this underground facility, and I think it's called S4. So that's one of the craziest experiences I had using the Gateway tapes. And ultimately, I decided to stop listening to them because I started to get this creepy feeling when I was using them. And I found that when I remote view without any sounds, there's less things for me to pay attention to. I can focus on the silent, therefore my messages seem to come through more clearly, and I feel better remote viewing when I'm not listening to a sound, because even listening to the ocean in my mind might implant some ideas that I associate with the ocean. So how do I know the insight I'm getting from the session is actually coming from what's happening in real time versus what my subconscious might associate with the ocean? So that's why I personally like to do my sessions in silence. Now, I do want to share 2 other really cool experiences that I've had with remote viewing and show you how you can use this in a practical way. So not only do I use remote viewing when I'm working with my tarot clients, I have also used it to help my friend find where he parked his car. I got a message from him one day and he was like, "Hey, can you help me find where I parked? I cannot for the life of me remember where I parked." And I said, "Look for something red." And then I got a text message a few minutes later that said, "Holy crap, dude, I followed a lady in a red dress. And then when I found my car, I was parked right in front of a red car." Another time I used remote viewing without realizing I was actually using remote viewing is when my dogs got out. And one of my dogs was missing for about a whole week. And I had helplessly put up flyers all around my neighborhood. I had done my research. I'd found out that most dogs are found within a mile of where they got out. So I had all this stuff in my mind already, and I was starting to lose hope. Actually, I wasn't losing hope. I think in my heart, I wanted to find her so bad, and I just wouldn't accept that she was gone. So there was a strong desire that I had, but I was kind of at a loss. I'm like, I don't really know what to do. Nothing's happening, but I'm not going to stop trying. Anyways, it was Friday night. It was about 8 p.m., so it was dark out. And I just had this random idea to go to the neighborhood that was right down the street from me. So I am driving through this neighborhood, which is less than a mile from my house. And in the dark, I see an animal. And first I thought it might be a deer, but I stopped my car, got out of the car, looked closely, realized it was my dog. So I couldn't see the man walking behind her. I just saw my dog's outline. I ran up to my dog. She greeted me. And then I saw that she was connected to a leash and a man was walking her along with another dog. And I said, "Sir, is this your dog?" And I said, "Excuse me." I said, "Sir, this is my dog. She got out a week ago. What is going on?" And he's like, "Oh, I thought she was a stray. I took her in. I've been feeding her." And I was like, "Oh my God, well, I'm so glad you found her." And then I took her back. So that's another way remote viewing can be used. And even though at the time I didn't realize I was consciously remote viewing because I had never heard the term remote viewing, I just had a really strong desire to find where my dog was. And I had natural psychic abilities. So I was able to receive the message from the universe, and I was able to pick up on her, probably something like quantum entanglement. I was able to pick up where she was through my thought energy of thinking about her and the emotional energy of not desperately, but like really wanting to find her. I mean, I guess kind of desperately. And I usually, when it comes to law of attraction, you usually don't want to have a desperate energy, but I guess in this case, it was maybe a strong desire and a strong sense of faith. A desperate sense of faith that helped me find her and helped me tap into what she was doing real time. So that's why I created my ESP development and remote viewing mastery course, because I want to help people tap into their intuition. And back when I didn't know how to consciously tap into my intuition or control it, I would attract a lot of scarier experiences on the astral realm. For example, I tried to have an out-of-body experience once, but I didn't know how to regulate my emotions, and my vessel certainly was not clean because I was treating my body like a trash can. So I was full of anxiety, and I tried to have an OBE. And because I was so full of anxiety, I attracted the kind of OBE where you see entities that are darker and you don't understand what's going on. So you get very fearful and it can ruin your experience. So I never tried it again after that. But I was able to get there by practicing techniques like imagining myself rolling over like a log or lifting myself up and pulling myself out of my body. So that's one way you can do it without listening to the gateway tapes. Another way you can have a gateway experience is to practice lucid dreaming. And one of the ways you can start having lucid dreams is if you get in the habit of looking at your hands during the day, because every time you look at your hands in a dream, your fingers don't look right for some reason. So if you start doing it in your waking life, it will translate into your dream world and eventually you'll have a lucid dream. But the other thing that was massively important for me to understand and that really affected my experiences with remote viewing and lucid dreaming and dreams in general was I got sober. I had to let go of the MJ. The Mary Jane made me forget all of my dreams. All of them, period. And it wasn't until I had about a year and 8 months sober that I just wasn't even trying to lucid dream, but I started lucid dreaming naturally, which leads me to believe that when our vessel is clean and we're eating high vibe foods and we're getting sunlight and we let go of nicotine, caffeine, alcohol, MJ, all of these things that weigh us down and create different chemical reactions in our brain, it can have an effect on our psychic experiences and our psychic abilities. So I hope you've learned something from this video. What about you? Have you gotten through the gateway experience? What's been your experience with the gateway tapes? Do you use the gateway tapes? Have you been able to figure out how to remote view? Can you remote view without them? Did anybody else out there just happen to stumble upon remote viewing without realizing they were remote viewing like I did? Let me know in the comments. And if you're interested in learning how to develop this skill, definitely check out my course, which is listed in my description. And I'll have you know that it is definitely more than a $33 value, but I wanted to make sure this course was available to people of all budgets because I think it's a really important skill to develop and have, especially as these times are changing. Wouldn't it be nice to know that your intuition is so strong that if, God forbid, you ever got separated from your family or friends or the grids went down, Well, my intuition is strong. I don't need a cell phone to know where somebody is. I can just quiet my mind and tap into my intuition and know what somebody's doing, know that they're safe, or even know where they might be and how I might meet up with them. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Let me know your experiences in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
I'll meet you in the